Hi there, this is Zoe Nightingale, and you're listening to Nursery, a podcast from Ohio's Creative Voice.
Hey everybody, this is your host Lee. Welcome to Nursery Podcast. If you're not familiar with what Nursery is and does, it's just a podcast with me and maybe a core group of friends, and then we spiral out from that core group. And what happens is we talk about music, a little bit of comedy, visual art, sometimes just about like stories from our childhood. Sometimes it's a talk about your career, it's a talk about your job. Sometimes it's a talk about Ohio, where you came from, if not Ohio. And so new listeners sometimes ask, where can I get all the episodes of Nursery? And I want to tell you, you got to go to thirdclass.net and bullskit.com to get that backlog of episodes. If you go to those two websites, you'll find Nursery pretty easily in a link there. And then you can find, at this point in 2016 in June, there are, I think, over 80 episodes of it. So if you have like a job where you listen to headphones, where you can safely listen to headphones while you work or something, it might be a good one to binge on if you like our style. It's a pretty like low maintenance, unslick podcast. This episode's kind of going to be a housekeeping episode. You know, when those big boy podcasts like Invisibilia or one of the select Kevin Smith podcasts sometimes have these little moments where they jump in and talk to you about here's what's to come, or I've got a movie on the horizon, or that kind of thing. That's what this is. So you can skip this if you're more into the ones with the guests or the, you know, storytelling or music or poetry and stuff like that. But let me tell you first off, on a personal note, I wanted to have just a quick moment of silence for people that I've lost in my class of 2002 East Palestine High School. East Palestine, if you don't know, is a very small town in Ohio near the PA border in the northeast Ohio area. There's plenty of people across America who have passed away too soon, so we can think of them when we have this moment. But I'm going to zone in, some of you East Palestine listeners will know who I'm talking about, on 6 people that we've lost from our class of 2002. So for Jennifer, Adam, Audra, Andrew, Ron, and Casey, let's have a moment of silence. Okay, thank you for that. Hopefully it does something for you. You can have your own moments of silence or apply that one to your friends and loved ones who you've lost. As far as Nursery Podcast goes, I hope you're enjoying what you're hearing so far. Please write in if you have suggestions. Cloegrave@gmail.com. That's CHLOEGRAVE@gmail.com. And you can also use that same email address if you run a small business or organization that needs a little bit of promotion, and you can sponsor Nursery. It's very cheap. It's a very low cost to keep this going. But it also does filter into the other projects we have, which are Third Class, my band, and Bullskit Productions, the comedy troupe. And, you know, thirdclass.net or bullskit.com again. So, you know, we've had past sponsors such as Dogs on the Run. That's an East Palestine hot dog joint. There were a couple of photography sponsors, which was great. Timeless Shots Photography and Leslie Cusano Photography. And we had a couple people like we had Cartography Coffee, and then a downtown Youngstown soap gallery, art gallery, and just to name a few. There's a few others. Tabar Productions, a good media company, advertising company, and the list goes on. And they're all satisfied because they paid a small amount, and they also got, I mean, they only got to a small amount of people because this is a small podcast, but the people they got to, I have confidence, were the right people, the kind of people that listen to stuff like this. Usually, I don't know, they sometimes tend to get out there and check it out and see what's going on. Speaking of, you know, when I mentioned going to those sites, my band Third Class has a lot of new stuff that we've been writing this year. I just wanted to tell fans of that outfit what's going on. We have, I don't know how this happened, but we have like 20 songs, and that's not a promise of a gigantic album or something like that. We gotta raise some money and see what's going on, but I can say that we probably will have studio time booked later this year. We're going to have moments where I'm going to take very much the lead of the band. I always have, but, to the point of there's going to be tracks that virtually don't feature Jack and Peppy, my brother Jack and my friend Peppy, the other two members. But they've had a huge hand in writing the songs. There's a ton of lyrics by Jack that are in the running, and Peppy has had a huge hand in getting the songs off the ground this time around. He's been the one that's kind of seemingly okayed the songs and like built the foundations with me, whereas Jack has kind of floated the songs and engineered the idea later on. And that's what the idea would be once we take it to the studio. So the idea right now is approximately 15 songs that would have me in the lead, and Jack and Peppy doing things like harmonies, engineering, backing, keyboard, harmonica, a little bit of bass, and a little bit of tambourine, and then there's 5 tracks that are drum bass guitar or drum bass keys or drum bass harmonica keys. That kind of, they're a little different. We're trying to do a little bit something different, but so that's just that's not something that's set in stone, but I just wanted to let people know to keep up on thirdclass.net and to follow the few solo shows that are happening this year in the summer. You can check out, there's going to be shows at places like Deletto Winery in Canfield. I'm going to help support Angie DeNicholas's album release show at Cedars. Those are, that's Youngstown. And then here and there, there'll be another show, maybe a show in PA. I think there's one in I think it's called Bridgeville, something like that. Check the site out, thirdclass.net. I'm going to mess it up. And yeah, this is just a housekeeping and plugging episode. So yeah, check that out. As far as Bullskit Productions that's a comedy troupe. We got a new skit called Lullaby. That will be on the silly songs section of bullskit.com. So check that out. And if you've missed a few, that's a rainy day thing. Get lost in some weird humor, watch a lot of skits, tons of skits. There's like 200 of them or something ridiculous there or more. So you can hit the donate button on either of those sites. There are still vinyl records available on thirdclass.net and stuff like that. And I guess what I mean, to come back to finance, that stuff, Nursery, Bullskit, Third Class, is all under the one umbrella. So you're donating to a cause that I'm imagining you'll be okay with. If you like one, you probably like the other two. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my youngest brother, Steve Boyle, has a huge hand in Bullskit Productions, and he actually has been doing hip-hop music under the name Summer Camp Steve. So if you go to summercampsteve.com, he actually has a new album out called Dreaming Reality. That's really a good time. And then check out his past work, Donkey Basketball, and then there's one called It's Okay, I'll Love You Always Anyway. And he actually put out a remix album called It's Okay, I'll Love You Always Anyway 2.0. So you can find him on Bandcamp if you search Summer Camp Steve, or go to summercampsteve.com. There's to look forward to for Nursery. You'll hear an interview with Angie DeNicholas, interview with Dr. Goo, Brandon Martin. Angie DeNicholas is, acoustic folk / rock musician. Dr. Goo is a DJ / he makes beats and makes like electronic music and stuff like that. What else we got? Oh, Michael Kutch. He's a guy who's always around. He's always at a show. He's got like an ear for new music, for old music, for just finding the good stuff. Michael Kutch, we'll talk to him, and we'll just kind of talk about music and jump all over the place, as we're kind of prone to do when we get together. And a couple other people here and there. I'm gonna have one I'm going to have a series of episodes that'll pop up here and there between me and Tim Smiley, an East Palestine friend. We cover a variety of subjects, so look for that. I think that's all I got for you. I just wanted to do that kind of housekeeping and plugging. And so thanks for listening to me ramble. I know this might have been kind of boring, but one more thing. I'm gonna let me recommend some local podcasts for you. I was recently a guest on one called the Makeshift Podcast. This is a cool thing because the Makeshift Podcast was spawned from the Makeshift Poets, which is a group that meets first Tuesday of every month at Havana House in Niles. They meet and they write poetry, they read poetry, they critique poetry. They're not pretentious, but they will craft with you. You know, it's cool, it's nice. It's like they'll hear anybody read and they want come one, come all, but they'll help you make your poetry better too. It's nice. I haven't met personally on that day because I can't ever make it because I work. But listening to the podcast has been a joy. That's a Warren, Ohio based podcast. And then speaking of Warren, Ohio, there's another one called Almost Facts. This is an awesome podcast because they, what do they do? Well, they talk about the supernatural and extraterrestrial and other things that might have that same mood, but they don't hold themselves to like giving you the History Channel version. They talk to you more about their perceptions of things. Almost Facts. That's a good podcast. Then I gotta mention Jimmy Fro Indie Music Show. Awesome podcast. Been around for a while now. That's partially an inspiration for Nursery. This is music. You know, this guy like sits a band down and interviews them, he interviewed somebody who runs the grog shop in Cleveland Heights, Ohio. So that was an interesting interview. So go find that, Jimmy Fro Indie Music Show. And then, of course, the Speaking of Music Show. They're actually a sponsor of Nursery. If you check them out on YouTube, they talk about more broad scope music. And then retro wrestling with Ouch. That's a weird one. I don't know if that's on iTunes, but if you search it in an internet browser, retro wrestling, that's WRETRO wrestling. So what he does, this is kind of fun if you're kind of a nostalgic person about like old, like say WWF type stuff. He goes to these kind of infamous matches or certain kind of matches and does like a quick commentary, like kind of summing them up. So check out retro wrestling. And then, okay, I'll end this episode with corrections. I made a few mistakes the last few episodes. I don't know where my head is. There was an episode called Taste Testing and Ballads, I think it was called, and I said that the music featured on that episode was One Soul Nation. That's wrong. It's One Soul Motion. One Soul Motion. I apologize for that. Check that episode out. It's a really weird episode, but I like it, of course. This isn't something you would have noticed, but I just wanted to kind of explain myself. I named an episode that I had the guy from the Makeshift Podcast, Brandon Noel, a really cool guy, and like he's a good, really great poet who's part of a book they put out called The Makeshift Volume 1. You got to check that book out. It's like got a bunch of Ohio poets in it. He was on Nursery and I was on his show, and when he was on Nursery, I titled the episode Awesome and Awesomer because I had like 4 podcasts that day because I tend to overbook like an idiot, and somebody in a different interview said awesome and awesomer, and then I thought he said it and I named it that. So let's just say, Brandon Noel, if you're listening, I named it because you're awesome, because I'm awesome and you're awesomer, or something dumb, like Dumb and Dumber or something. We'll see. That's the new story for that. It doesn't matter. Just wanted to say what I meant there. And then the episode where someone actually says awesome and awesomer is an episode featuring Ann Rock, an episode entitled The Super Babes and First Night Youngstown. So convoluted, I know. But guys, I can't say enough. Thank you so much for listening. It's been so awesome to just talk into a microphone, acting like a silly Willy, and let you guys take from it what you will. And I hope that we continue, and let me know if you'd like to be a guest on Nursery. I am overwhelmed by the amount of people I realize I know. I don't know if I'll ever get to all the people I know now. But I'd like to, and I'd like to go beyond that. So the conversations we have are so valuable to me, and of course this podcast doubles as an audio journal for me when I'm older, if I'm lucky enough to make it long in this life. So, look, Mom, I'm on a podcast. Thanks for listening to Nursery. Be sure to check out thirdclass.net and bullskit.com. All right, guys. See you.